Hello everyone, it's me, Seb, High Financial Planning. So today I just wanted to introduce an ex-colleague and a dear friend of mine called Ray Verma. Ray and I sat down a few weeks ago and we had a conversation about AI. Okay, I think it's the hot topic at the moment, everyone's talking about it. And what I wanted to do with Ray, he set up a business that is looking to proactively encourage or proactively promote the use of AI systems, tools, instruments within financial services. Now, he's launched his business a few weeks ago. Definitely go check him out, see what he's all about. But this conversation was all about AI. It was to do with, rather importantly, the impact that we were both feeling this could have on the financial services sector, but also the world as a whole. I think it is going to be a bit of a game changer for a lot of people. But since we sat down a few weeks ago, there's been a few different developments within the space, not least the summit that happened in the UK with the likes of Elon Musk and Rishi Sunak sitting down and discussing all things AI themselves. And, you know, I think for me, there is absolutely no doubting that the capabilities of this technology are so superior to anything we've seen before. And the rate of change and the advancement in this technology is quite impressive, but it's also scary. And I think personally, I'm very cautious about this technology. And thus far, I haven't chosen to proactively engage with it. And by proactively, I mean, I haven't chosen to engage with things like ChatGPT or any of that kind of technology. Now, you might call it a bit of a fuddy-duddy or a bit old school, but actually, for me, I have my reasons for not doing it. But as Ray very kindly points out in his video, is that AI is already here. Okay, we're already using it. Whenever me, my wife, or my daughter engage with Alexa to play a song, or I'm tapping an email and it suddenly starts to suggest what the next word might be. Sometimes it phrases it better than me. But in essence, you know, there are a couple of reasons that I have personally, why I have chosen not to engage with this at this stage. Okay. Firstly, I'm not comfortable with the idea that any interaction I have with that technology only serves to expand its capabilities. Okay, I do not want to be part of the problem / solution, depending on which side of the argument you're on, for what the future is of this technology. And secondly, fear. Okay, like many of you, or like some of you, you know, I've seen the movies, I've seen how it ends, and it's not good for us, right? So the simple fact is that we do not know where this technology lands, where it takes us, and you know, the rate at which it's advancing, we're already struggling to keep up with it. So that in itself is actually quite disturbing. But I always like to give a balanced argument. On the flip side, I completely understand how this can create efficiencies in my business. And, you know, if I'm honest, anything that can decrease a cost or increase efficiency, we have to give it some kind of thought. We have to talk about it. We have to look at that option as a business owner. But do we really know enough about it? Do we really know enough about this technology yet to really understand the impact that it's going to have, not only on our industry as financial services professionals, but also the wider world, and what's going to happen in the long run? I found the chat really interesting. I think Ray is a great guy. Please go and follow his content, have a look at what he's going to do. You know, engage with it if you want to. But we've also promised each other we're going to probably have this chat again in maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 years' time, to kind of see how the conversation has aged, what's happened, have I adopted some levels of AI within my business to create those efficiencies he quite readily talks about. But please, you know, have a watch of the video. I think it's an interesting watch. We have a bit of fun with it. It's just a chat between two friends. But you'll have two perspectives here. You have Ray, who is pioneering this technology, trying to get it in front of financial services professionals to improve their efficiencies. And then me, the traditionalist who's quite openly skeptical about it, but always willing and happy to listen and hear the counter argument, always open to that. So please, without any further ado, have a watch of the video. Let me know what you think. Engage with me on this topic. I'm always happy to learn, always happy to hear what other people have to say about it. So please share your thoughts in the comments. But above all, please subscribe, like any of my channels, and check me out on all the social platforms. Thank you.
Hello, mate. It's good to see you. How are you?
I'm very well, Seb. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. So just for everybody watching this, I'm Seb, founder of Higher Financial Planning, part of the St James's Place group, and myself and Ray used to work together when I was back in my stockbroking role, and Ray, you were a business development manager, something like that, where you were out bringing business to me and helping me out and my team, which was great, and we got to know each other a bit back then and sort of stayed in touch. But you've made a recent change. Tell me a little bit more, mate. What's going on?
Yeah, so hello, everyone. My name's Ray Verma. So a bit of background about me. So Seb is right. We worked together for, 3.5 years, actually. So that went quite quickly. My background predominantly is banking and wealth and investment management. I've worked across different international markets, so places like London, Geneva, Dubai, to name a few, over the last 15 years. So recently stepped out of sort of what you'd call core financial services into a slightly different venture. So rayverma.ai is the business. And we've effectively, there's 4 of us within the business, have founded a company that it focuses on educating financial services professionals so they can understand and integrate artificial intelligence into their day-to-day tasks and into their business as well. So we provide everything from online courses to bespoke consultations, but really the aim of the business is to bring everybody up to speed in obviously what is a hugely exciting time, but obviously one that looks significantly different to how it did maybe 12 or 18 months ago.
Yeah, you say exciting. I'm still a little like myself, and I think it's that kind of, I think it's fair to say we've all seen the movies, right? And we all know how they end. And I think, forgive me for being somewhat of a pessimist when it comes to this type of stuff. But for yourself, like with AI, with AI, do you feel that financial services is ready for AI? And how do you see that work? How do you see that incorporating into financial services?
So let's zoom out a little bit. I'll take you on a bit of a journey. So before all of this kind of really kicked off, so I was involved in a few other ventures outside of financial services, e-commerce, digital marketing, and I was lucky enough to interact with artificial intelligence sort of in earlier days, before it sort of had its watershed moment this year. And when I started working with really advanced AI technology, something became really apparent, and that was that there's a significant discrepancy in the application of AI within the financial services industry. So at an institutional level, the really, really big guys that are familiar to everybody, the household names, they're definitely doing stuff. But more at a ground level, advisors like yourself, wealth managers, private bankers, and so on, there's a huge knowledge and application gap with regards to AI, and it's widening every single day as new tech is kind of introduced. And I think history's shown us time and time again that businesses during these revolutions, they either evolve or they become obsolete.
Yeah,
I think change is happening at such an unprecedented rate that I think those inevitably that don't adopt do risk irrelevance that maybe we saw in the past when the internet was created, or sort of post .com bubble and et cetera, or even the way that we did business post financial crisis, and how businesses had to adapt in our industry as well. So I think ultimately it presents a huge opportunity, but I think there is a big education piece around AI and bringing everybody up to speed within the industry as well.
Okay. So are we ready?
No is my gut answer, but it's a multifaceted answer, because we're ready from the perspective of there are tools that exist that are out there that can significantly enhance and improve the way that we do business. So we're ready from that perspective. Where we're perhaps not ready is the rate of change, the velocity of change. So what I recommend to industry professionals now may not be relevant tomorrow. And that's scary, right? That creates a lot of trepidation, a lot of anxiety, all the things that you would associate with that. I mean, I'll put it back on you. Do you feel ready?
No. No, quite frankly, mate, no, I don't. And I suppose it comes down to, I suppose, an element of self-interest, right? So there's an element of like, well, hang on a second, how's this going to impact me? And I suppose that's probably where everyone's coming at it from, right? Is that it's like, well, hang on, if this can replace, I don't know, diary management, something mundane, right? Something quite simple. If this can replace something process driven, okay, I'm not saying advice is process driven. There is a human element to financial advice. But I suppose at what point do we get to it in terms of when does machine separate from human, and at what point do we kind of say, okay, AI, you've done your bit, I now step in, and what does that kind of efficiency look like? And I think one of the things that I've thought about is the revolution of the email. Okay, so when the email first came in, everybody was like, "Oh, this is going to be amazing! Like we're going to be in communication with people all around the world at the split second," and it's great. But what it's also meant is on the flip side is we're constantly in touch, and to the point where it's almost like sometimes we can't even switch off. So I suppose with AI, yes, I think speed and efficiency are great, but at what point do I turn AI off, and at what point does it become me again, right? So I can turn AI on, right? According to what you've said, I can turn AI to do certain tasks and create efficiency within my business.
Yes.
But at the other end, I still have to be there doing certain tasks. So what am I realistically saving is probably what I would ask. What is it? What are the efficiencies that I can realistically and now deliver for my business to help my business grow?
I think it's a great question. I think it really depends on what's important to you and your business. Because the reality is there is so much out there that can optimize different areas of your business, particularly wealth management related, which is kind of what's given way to the business that we've created, because we cover so many facets of wealth management and how AI can touch those different areas and benefit a wealth management business. But the reality is with regards to advice, if we start with sort of what you initially said about advice, I fundamentally believe that AI is not about replacement. It's about enhancement, right? So if you take two financial advisors, the one that uses AI will always outperform the one that doesn't use AI. But the technology itself isn't a substitute for human judgment and expertise and relationships, because fundamentally humans will always want to deal with humans, right? I was watching a podcast actually earlier this week, and anecdotally, a company brought out a piece of software, and it was kind of like artificial intelligence. And effectively, when you're at the gym, this machine tells you what to do in order to perform the rep better on the machine. It gives you encouragement so that in the next set you can hit out more reps, and all this kind of what you would call coaching. But it never took off. It was a great idea, but it never took off. And the reality is because people didn't show up to the gym in the first place to then use the machine. The bit was they needed somebody to actually communicate with, to have that accountability to even turn up to the gym in the first place. And that's the personal trainer. So you've got YouTube videos, you've got apps, you've got loads of different things that can, you've even got VR headsets that can help you in the gym and do all these things. But the reality is that people will always come back to a personal trainer, a coach, somebody that they've got that one-to-one relationship with. I'm sure in 5 years' time, we'll have hairdressers that can cut hair in the form of robots. But how much do we enjoy going to the barbers? How much do people enjoy going to the hairdressers just to chew the fat while they're in the chair for a bit? That interaction with human beings. So I don't think people should fear artificial intelligence. I think they should think about those who know how to harness the power of artificial intelligence and understand that people aren't competing against the intelligence, they're competing against other humans. So then it becomes, actually, are you going to be the person that knows how to use AI? Are you going to be the person that decides that you don't want to? And then where'd you go from there? So I think it's a bit more nuanced.
No, yeah, of course it is. And I think, like you said, like we're learning almost hour by hour, right? This thing is moving at quite a pace. I suppose one of the questions I've got for you is, have you seen a financial advisor or practice or a financial business implement this successfully? And where do you really see, like, for me, how can this add value? How can it really make things more efficient for me?
Yeah, so the great benefit to starting this business is the amount of interest that we've had and the number of different advisors and wealth managers and private bankers we work with. And there's two camps with regards to people in your position. There's a lot want to go a million miles per hour that are excited by every aspect of AI. And then there's the majority, which is, okay, I kind of just want to dip my toe in the water here and just kind of see if it works out. What I will say is firms, individuals, businesses that have successfully integrated AI, they've done so by actually starting really small. So automating one or two processes and then just kind of scaling up from there on in. So not drastically changing everything that you do, because that will make transitioning AI to AI become sort of really overwhelming, difficult, clunky, expensive, all those things that you would associate with doing that. I think it's more about focusing on small areas that you can increase by 10, 20, 30% productivity for those kind of marginal, or not say marginal in that case, but sort of compound gains. So, whether it's something like a Fireflies or Otter, which are effectively a third party that sits in on a Zoom or a Teams meeting and is transcribing that meeting for you, and it's assigning whatever's said to the individual that said it, so that afterwards you can just go in and either skim read through it or have a look at the summarized notes that it's put together of the key points. And that effectively is going to save John or Margaret or Linda or whoever it may be from actually sitting down in the meeting and taking notes with a pen and paper or on a laptop. So actually, how much more productive can that make a business? Well, that individual that might have taken minutes during that meeting can now go and do something else within the business that can actually have a tangible impact. And actually, if you run a really small business where you're the only individual within that business and you have a meeting with a client, let's say, and you've got this piece of software running in the background, what are the things that you are going to remember that you weren't otherwise able to remember? What are the details or the nuances during the conversation that's going to pick up that you might miss? And therefore, when it comes to Mr. Smith's birthday in 6 months' time, or the graduation of his daughter, and you've picked up that really small detail, how much is that going to deepen that client relationship that you've got by otherwise effectively playing a guessing game? Which I get, we've been playing so-called guessing game for all of humanity's existence, but it no longer has to be a guess anymore. So something like that seemingly is so small, but the ripple effect of it is so huge. And at the end of the day, if you can deepen your client relationships, what do? Well, you increase the chances of the client being retained. You increase the chance of more clients being attained via things like referrals, recommendations, etc., etc. And actually, your job becomes more enjoyable because you're not sat there typing like this while the client's talking. Actually, you're looking into the whites of their eyes while they're saying what they are saying, and you're being present during that communication, which is really, really important because certainly in your role and the way that you help clients, they want to be heard, they want to be listened to, they want to be understood. Empathy is a huge part of financial advice and entrusting you and whoever the wealth manager may be, the financial advisor, with the information that you're giving to them, right? The money's thing, but actually it's the meaning, it's the thought behind what that money's going to do and objectives and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I'm spouting off about what you do to you, but
yeah, it sounds about right. So how does that work then? So what would that just be? Sat on my phone, I'm sitting across from you for a coffee shop, we're having an initial meeting, and my phone sat in the middle of the table picking up everything that we're saying.
Yeah, precisely. So how voice memos work on iPhones or other recording equipment that comes built into the device that you're using, it just sits there. Now, one thing that I will mention, which is incredibly important, and need to be aware of, is AI in conjunction with data privacy and security. So AI is very, very compliant when it comes to the highest regulation of data privacy, encryption, so on and so forth. But it's really important that all parties involved during that meeting have given the green light for that tool to be used during that meeting. That's really, really important. But as long as that's done, then it's carte blanche in terms of how you're able to use the software. You can have it sat there. It's going to do everything you want it to do, pick up on all the information you need it to, and off you go. And I think one thing that's really encouraging about software like that is it's not expensive either. I think a subscription to Fireflies, and I'm plugging them a lot here, so hopefully they
we'll cut that bit, mate. It's fine.
Yeah, they call up and they give me a pat on the back. But I mean, one great thing about them is that I think it's 15 or 16 pounds a month. It might be more, it might be less by the time this goes out or whatever it may be. But that is a substantial return on investment.
Yeah, it is. I suppose, for me, it's very much when we kind of look at that bit about kind of almost consent, right? So consent from the client, kind of knowing that it's there. Is there anything, because especially for those less scrupulous amongst us, right? You could be incorporating this without kind of any. What is there out there that kind of polices it or regulates it in a way? Is there anything other than the person tweaking the dial, so to speak?
Yeah. So again, it's a good question. The reality is that those that are trying to regulate it, and I do believe it needs to be regulated because of the power of the technology, are playing catch up. There's no doubt about it. We've seen European directives come in over the last couple of months. The Senate in the US are trying their hardest to implement laws to kind of govern the use of AI, but we're seeing it sort of, we're kind of seeing industry leaders self-certify the regulation, in the sense of, a lot of people might be familiar with Elon Musk's comments. I think it was about 6 months ago, where he basically said, look, we as industry leaders are aware of what this technology can do, but we've all kind of signed a pact to say we're going to keep a lid on it because of how big the consequences are of releasing that kind of technology into the general public. So I think there is very much kind of an emphasis to police oneself over how they use the technology. Ethical dilemmas will always be there, but it's up to ourselves to use it in an ethical manner. And I think I'd like to think that we would do that, especially within our industry. You know, there's transparency, there's openness, and there's a conversation that, hang on, I use this within my business, but there's a reason I do it, and it's because ultimately outcomes from using this are going to benefit you as a client.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I know you talk about playing catch up. I think I saw someone somewhere that Google or one of the big tech companies are developing a technology that will be capable of identifying something that's been, for example, an article written by ChatGPT, right? So where content is developed or put out there in the world, let's call it an article, where that is written by something like ChatGPT, I think it's called. It's that thing that basically it will write that for you. I mean, that idea of catch up is probably one of the things that scares me the most, if I'm honest, because I think this thing is moving ahead of our capability of keeping up with it. And I suppose, integrating this into a business, like taking baby steps and things like that, I can get on board with that. I can understand like where that could deliver efficiencies for me as a business. But I suppose look beyond us, right? Let's look beyond the end of our own nose, right? The end of our bonnet, and kind of actually look at the world then, right? So this actually becomes huge because like I said at the very beginning, I've seen the movies, if there's a business out there called Skynet using this stuff, maybe let's possibly rein them in. But it's very much, I think the global impact of this is going to be enormous. So outside of financial services, we talked a little bit about the impact in certain places, but where do you see this having the biggest impact in terms of what it could potentially do to, I mean, it's a massive disruptor, right? So certain industries and sectors are going to be hugely put out. You look at the internet, right? And I think you did this in your first post. You do it, you deliver it, you're going to do it better than me. But it was around what this means, as what this is in terms of the revolution or evolution of stuff over time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we talked about it before, but the analogy I always use is Blockbuster and kind of how we ended up at Netflix, for example. It was only what, 10, 15 years ago that you'd finish work on a Friday, you'd probably go and pick up a takeaway, and on the way home, you'd grab a movie from the store, right? And at that point, Blockbuster was flying high, 9,000 stores globally, market leader by an absolute country mile. And then within what seems a handful of years, we already skipped kind of Love Film, which was sending you discs through your letterbox, and we ended up at Netflix. And I think that just shows two things. It shows the dangers of a lack of adoption of new technology, and the ignorance and arrogance of not doing so, but it also shows how quickly technology can move forward. With regards to sectors that I see being impacted the most by AI, I mean, I would actually argue financial services is probably one of the biggest, because whilst those relationships that we talked about earlier can't be replicated, or AI can't jump in and so on and so forth, there's a lot within our industry that can be automated. There's a lot of mundane tasks that if you give a large language model inputs and you tell it what it needs to do during sort of the process and you want an output or the parameters it needs to follow, it's going to give you that same output every single time, especially if it's very linear, i.e. here's X, need you to do Y equals Z. And I think looking at that and at a macro level, that then applies to healthcare. It applies to the legal industry. I think in the Goldman Sachs AI report from earlier this year, they cited the legal industry as actually being the one that's going to be affected more than any other industry. Because again, while relationships do exist between attorneys and clients, et cetera, if you have a legal framework that you need to adhere to, and a computer effectively can interpret that legal framework end to end in a matter of seconds, well, you can clearly see how it plays quite a pivotal role. I even think we're going to see this extend quite dramatically to creative industries, which actually you could argue are already feeling the impact. So I know you're really big into your art. We're seeing crazily artificial intelligence-based artwork going for X amount of pounds, dollars, euros, whatever it may be. So the potential is limitless, and that can't be denied. One thing I would say, though, to not be completely doom and gloom, is that one thing that a lot of individuals that I work with don't necessarily realize is that we're actually already surrounded by a lot of AI. So this theory that we've not touched AI yet, we've not come into contact with it, we don't know if we want to, et cetera, well, a lot of people use Alexa. A lot of people use Siri. These are natural language processing tools that are part of machine learning. IBM's Deep Blue, 1997, that was launched. That was the first artificial intelligence-based solution that was able to beat a human being playing chess. That's 26 years ago, almost 27 years ago. So my message to a lot of people, and it would be who's watching this, don't be fearful, because you actually already use AI.
Yeah, I mean, I'm again, I'm in that camp, right? Because I held off by getting Alexa for years, like years and years and years. And it wasn't until we got a new Sonos speaker that actually, they're like, oh, it's kind of incorporated in, and then we didn't actually allow it to be turned on until until Grace turned 2, I think, and now it's Alexa play Baby Shark. But it's very much like, I get it, I understand. But I'm kind of coming back to this kind of, you mentioned earlier about like humans will always want to talk to humans, but I guess kind of even in our industry, right, you don't necessarily see that. So I look at my old world, stockbroking, right, and for years, people even challenged me and sort of said, well, what's the use of you? We've got Hargreaves Lansdown, or we've got Interactive Investor, right? I've got an online platform I can trade in the market. I don't need a broker. And it's that, it's still a challenge. So I guess at what point, does AI kind of mirror or become almost kind of on a par with that type of functionality? I suppose that is kind of, I'm thinking out loud now, right? So that is that kind of where it is a process, click, trade, buy, sell, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's a process, that's where AI can become very useful, right? But where it's a human to human interaction, and I suppose this is horses for courses, so it depends on what you want to do. Are you happy interacting with just a machine, or do you want to have human contact? But yeah, I've seen some stuff recently where AI is starting to get very, very good at replicating or being close to a human being. So I suppose there is that element of me that is still fearful of it. And yeah, when does it come for us? When does it?
Okay, let's flip the script a little bit then. Let's turn it on its head and go a little bit improv, which I'm sure you'll thank me for later.
Yeah, can't wait. Good.
Yeah. So artificial intelligence is already out of the box, right? It's already here. It already exists. It's coming. We can't put a lid on it. That's kind of where we are. With that said, what are you going to do if you don't adopt AI? As an individual and as a business, where does that put you? What does the future look like in terms of how you go to market, how you help clients, how you operate a business? Because adaptation, therefore, is not a choice, it's a necessity from my standpoint. Now, I'm biased because clearly I have a bit of a handle on this. I'd like to think so. But yeah, curious how you feel about
that. I suppose it's difficult, right? Because you don't know what the ending looks like, I guess. Like, where does it stop? So it's kind of almost at that point where we saw all the warning signs and we did this to ourselves. Okay, so it's that kind of, I don't know what 20 years looks like. You know, I've got a 3-year-old and a 5-week-old daughters. The world that they're going to be growing up in Grace is 3, so 15 years, right? So when she's 18 and she wants to go to uni or get her first car, what does that look like? And I talk to this clients about this a lot. It's like, what does the future look like? Are they going to be driving hydrogen? You know, are they going to be going to uni in a virtual classroom? Are they going to be staying at home? What does that look like? And we look at it with investing and that sort of long-term time frame, I guess. But I think sort of from my perspective, not knowing, because like I said, AI is accelerating things at such a pace. It's really hard to see where this is going to end and how it's going to end. And by not adopting it, do I sleep with a good conscience at night, knowing that I wasn't part of the end of the world like you are? Or tongue in cheek, right, mate? Because I can't believe it's going to end up there. But like I said, the movies have kind of painted a pretty grim picture of this stuff. But it's I don't know, and I think as a business owner, I'm always looking for ways to kind of make a process more efficient, because I spend a lot of time and energy booking appointments, transcribing notes from meetings, updating systems like Salesforce and things like that. Actually, that is a lot of time and energy. Now, my options are do it myself, employ somebody to do it, or try and adopt some kind of system in your world that allows that to happen at a very, very efficient pace for very little money. So I can absolutely see from a business owner's point of view the driver for this and where you can do very well as a business yourself. I cannot escape that kind of that human element of of employing somebody and seeing employment and everything else kind of. I don't know. I think it's going to be so disruptive to so many different industries. What does that mean for people, right? So what does that mean for us as individuals, as human beings? Like, where does that leave us, right? If you've spent, like I have, 15 years, 16 years becoming a financial services expert, if all of a sudden I'm finding that I'm being, and I know replaced isn't the right word, but circumvented by businesses that have adopted this type of thing and finding myself lagging behind, what do I then go and do? And again, it's very selfish. What do I then go and do? What do these lawyers go and do? What do, all of these other people that, go and do? Where do they end up? Where do they land? And what does that, I don't know, what does that look like?
I think one thing is for sure, what we're talking about there is probably a long, long way off. And
forget about it. It doesn't matter.
Phone down, forget this whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's only my daughter's problem. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah, we'll kick that can down the road. Yeah. I think there were probably a lot of people thinking that, Seb, in 1983 when the internet was introduced. There was a lot of people that had their Bic, Biro, Parker, whatever it may be, that were using those old kind of mathematics style books which had all the grid lines in to make a note of client portfolios, etc., and they were probably saying the same thing about Microsoft DOS or whatever it was, or and probably when Office came in towards the late 90s, and I think we just history leaves a lot of clues, right? And we just adapt, and we generally adapt not to our detriment, but in a positive way. And I was laughing actually when I was speaking to somebody about this earlier this week, that is a business owner and looking to hire, and we got into AI, etc., etc. And you know how job specs say on them for mostly entry level roles, but they say X, Y, and Z needs this, needs this, needs this, you'll be responsible for, and then requirements. And one of them typically is you need to be competent with Microsoft 365. You need to know how to use Word, Excel, whatever. All that's going to change now is that's probably going to say you need to know a bit about ChatGPT. and that's that probably, although it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but it probably encompasses the direction that we're going in. It's not going to be about sitting at in a boardroom with 8 screens around me in a circle that all communicate with each other through a server, and then there's a spokesperson on the MacBook at the end of the table that communicates all of the information back to me. Realistically, it's going to be about hiring people who are capable, who are competent with AI, who know how to use it and get the best out of it. But actually, when it comes to the business, there will still be individuals, human beings that will sit at the top of that business or within that business that are able to make those decisions. Machines handle data, humans handle decisions, right? That's the way I like to look at it at the moment anyway. Of course, when we get to a point where they look like us, they do what we do, they eat the way we do, they sleep the way we do, although they probably don't need to sleep, then that's a bit of a different place that we will exist in. But luckily, there's not a lot of evidence that that's going to be anytime soon.
And on that bombshell, I think, mate, I think, look, it's still definitely, and maybe to some of my listeners, it's still something that, again, is probably going to be something they need to kind of spend a bit more time thinking about and kind of get used to. But according to you, don't take too long, because you'll be left in the dust, right? No, it's fascinating stuff, mate. It really is, and I'm really pleased you made that leap, and yeah, I'm fascinated by it, terrified of it. But I think, yeah, incorporating, like you say, baby steps, getting used to it, understanding it. So is there anywhere through yourself that I can go that will help me to get a better grip on it?
Yeah, sure. So anybody, not just you, I encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn. We're still at a stage, business-wise, where I can communicate with most people that are clients of the business. Who knows, one day that might become too extreme, and I might need a robotic assistant. Who knows? But
probably already using one, mate, aren't you?
Can't reveal all my secrets.
Yeah.
Very much human input at that level at the minute.
Yeah.
But LinkedIn, always encourage anybody to contact me on there, start a conversation. In terms of what we do and the benefit that we provide to individuals and businesses, rayverma.ai. Either go via Calendly and book some time in with me. Let's talk about integration on a bespoke basis. Or what I really encourage people to do is have a look at some of the courses that we have that are on-demand content, because that really serves as foundational core AI content that will bring you up to speed. It will give you all the knowledge that you need to know, specifically within our industry, and then you can decide how and where you want to pivot from there. And then you've got a really solid grounding to move forward.
I suppose, mate, brilliant, right? So I suppose that's kind of sort of where I come from in my socials. It's right, educate, inform, and empower, right? So it's very much that kind of those three pillars of give me the information, let me understand it, and then actually, do I use it? Don't I use it? Right? So we can go to your website, sign up for these courses, and then that basically allows us to, me specifically. Everyone else, I'm going to have a look, just so that I can. It's important to understand it. It's important to sort of get to know it better, so as that you can make a more informed decision, right? So
yeah,
I'll be checking it out, mate. Whether or not I incorporate it or not, we'll see. But yeah, fascinating stuff, mate. And look forward to having a chat in 2 years' time, as long as the world hasn't ended.
I'll see you in 2 weeks, more like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's moving so fast. Yeah, no, fair enough, mate. Fair enough. I really appreciate your time, buddy. Lovely to catch up and speak as always, and thanks for taking the time to do this. It means a lot.
Thank you, mate. Pleasure.